first of all, what an atmosphere having the draft here, and there's so many cool things that happen that quite frankly I didn't expect. I thought it might be just a nuisance, but it was such a cool environment, such a cool thing, and just a lot of thanks and gratitude for Mark having the vision to bring that here. I think that was something that we'll never forget. I also want to thank Mark for all the support and leadership that he's provided us for so many years. Hopefully this is not his last time in the draft room. Hopefully he'll come back, but he's been really instrumental in all the things we've been able to accomplish here, and we just really can't thank him enough. As well as kind of frankly, our entire scouting staff, the coaches, all our support staff. There's so many people that are involved in this. It's such a long process, so really feel good about what we were able to do over the 3 days. They're still grinding out some UDFA stuff up there, but again, I think we helped our football team. We're excited about the guys we brought in. But just a lot of gratitude and thanks, not only for myself, but I think everybody that was involved. So with that, I'll take your questions. Had a pretty good day today and excited about these guys.
Ryan, is Brinson better at gobbling up blocks like TJ did, or is he more of an attacker from inside?
He's a little bit of both. I was proud of TJ how he progressed, and when he first got here, he was kind of just he was one of those guys that held the point really well, could eat up double teams, but he progressed as a pass rusher as well. I think Brinson coming out, it probably has a little bit more pass rush naturally, but again, a really big man that can do a lot of things. I think the coaching staff, and I believe he can play up and down the line. He's not just a one position player on the defensive line, so that was one of the things that attracted us to him.
Brian, obviously teams change every year, but when you sat down after the season and you looked at where you wanted to get to, through all the free agency and the draft, what do you think you did for your football team, and where do you think you are?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rob. I think I really increased the competition across the board. I think I spoke before. I felt really good about our football team coming into this draft. We did some things in free agency, and just where our team was in general, that I felt really, really good about it. Certainly, we increased the competition in a lot of spots. Draft never always falls exactly how you think it's going to fall. It's always interesting, but I like that part of it, and I think we were able to add, particularly these 3 days, and even in free agency, really good culture fits. Guys that are really fit into our locker room and be assets to us that way.
I know you wanted to add more picks, and it didn't obviously happen. But given where your team is at and the number of guys on your team that you already really like, is that okay, especially given what you're saying about the competition?
Yeah, I feel good about it. I would have loved to acquire more picks, whether that was this year or next year, and we really didn't accomplish that. But it was really pretty quiet today as far as that went. At the same time, even though I feel really good right now, things can change fast. So the more, the better. But I will say I'm pretty excited. I just left the draft room, and some of the UDFAs that we were able to sign were guys we had pretty high on the board. So, hopefully that can, make up for some of that. But we had 8 picks. Feel really good about those guys, and then some of the guys that we're signing right now, I feel pretty good about too. So.
Yeah, the two rushers you picked there later in the draft. Is there any reason to think that they can help you right off the bat? Or
yeah, absolutely. Obviously there's going to be a transition there, but they're two different guys. One guy wins with a lot of power and length and hands, and the other guy's got some athleticism and speed. Who's played on his feet a little bit as well. So I think there's some versatility there. I think both those guys can contribute. But again, we'll see. It's those guys coming in the National Football League. It's a whole different ballgame. But I think both those guys can compete.
Right, when you create these competitive situations like you have, do you worry, do you monitor the way guys handle it in terms of like ruffling any feathers or anything like that? Do you watch how they react to that?
Yeah, we certainly watch how they react. That's a good thing, right? The competition brings out the best in all players, and if it doesn't, then it's probably going to be a rough go anyway. We want to constantly have that internal pressure, so to speak, on our guys, because I think that's important. If you're going to compete in the National Football League, you got to be able to handle that and be at your best. So you watch how all our guys handle the competition and the new challenges that they may face from year to year. But it's an important thing that we have that.
Right, you get to make. I think the quote was, "We'll reevaluate or look at the Jair situation after we see how the draft goes."
now that it's your quick, I know I'm sure you guys haven't sat down and done a full debrief, but your quick reaction, you waited until the 7th round. I'm sure it's kind of how the downs roll. Perfect world, you would rather gone earlier, but what is your quick reaction on where that situation stands?
Yeah, no real updates on that. Again, we'll work through that as we go, but no updates there. And he's on our roster right now, and that's how we'll proceed. But we'll figure that as we go along.
Would you like to done cornerback earlier if you could, like with that kind of, LaFleur did say it was a priority at the start, but obviously things you have.
Yeah, as you guys know, I don't really go in there with like those kind of priorities. We build our board, and we try to stay true to our evaluations of it, and then we let the board come to us. Every draft class is a little bit different, so it wasn't something we were going to chase. It's important to us, and I think certainly adding Micah there at the end was really, really good because he's a player we brought in here, and we're pretty excited about. But it was kind of one of those things with the board is what it is, and it fell the way it fell. So we feel pretty good about our group right now. I feel the guys that we have in that room, they got some pelts on the wall, so to speak, as far as what they've been able to do in the National Football League. So we'll kind of see how that goes.
You said that you expect internal improvement with the pass rush. With the things that Jeff was able to unlock with that, with the blitz scheme last year, did that take pressure off you this offseason maybe to not feel the need that you absolutely had to go out there and target it first thing, put it at the top of your priority list?
Yeah, I mean, again, it wasn't something we were avoiding. It was certainly something that, again, if the right opportunity was there, we were going to strike. And we really were excited about the guys we got today. I do think we have a number of players that are coming into their own. There's a number of young players that are coming into their own and should play their best football in front of them. I also think the two inside linebackers we have a unique ability both to rush the passer very, very well. So, along with Isaiah, but both Quay, Isaiah, and Coop, I mean, those guys can do that, very, very well. So, I'm excited to see what Hop can do when he gets his opportunity as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think that flexibility is great. And I think the second year and half scheme too, and as he really understands what we have in our players and how he sees them, that'll help as well.
How important is it to have so many different kinds of options and not kind of be pigeonholed into having to rush with just 4 up front, having that flexibility?
I think it's important. Again, I've stood up here at length for years talking about the versatility and how important that is, and the challenges you're going to face every year with injuries and different things that come your way are very, very unpredictable, and to have enough well-rounded guys that can do a lot of different things really can put your mind at ease. When you have guys like Quay and Coop and their versatility as linebackers and the ability for them to rush the passer, that's a helpful thing. So, again, I like our versatility right now, and we'll kind of see how Half sees it this year and how he puts those guys in position. But I'm excited about it.
Along those lines, what made it worth making an exception and drafting a 240-pound pass rusher?
Yeah, we talked a lot about, just having guys like that can chase the quarterback down, and again, there's not a lot of guys in our league that win with pure speed, on the edge. But there are some guys that have, really good get-offs and quickness, and, certainly I think as we kind of talked about it, one thing that I'm always concerned about with guys, if all they can do is rush the passer and they're that size, when you have injuries and they got to play more on first and second down, they can put you in a spot. I think with Collins, with his situation, he can actually stand up and play some linebacker too. He can play some Sam linebacker. So I think that versatility made us comfortable with it.
Brian, just to clarify, you said that's how we'll proceed. Does that mean you're keeping Jair on the team for this season?
No, I'm just saying nothing's changed, no updates. So we'll proceed as we go right now, and we'll see how it goes.
Hey, Brian. Matt and Milt both talked about with Barron that it was kind of a surprise that he actually wasn't done. Just what was your reaction when you found out about that?
It was pretty funny. We get him on the phone, obviously, right before we return the pick in, and there's a ton of noise going on. They were very excited. And I heard Matt Klein, who, when I handed the phone off, he's talking to him about, hey, when you come up for camp, where are you coming from? He said, well, he had to fly back to home, and no one thought to ask him, well, where are you flying from? We just figured he was somewhere else, and so to find out that he was here was a complete shock when we saw him on TV walking down the runway, and it shouldn't have been because he was on the list, right? But it was just one of those things we didn't really think about. But what a cool moment that was. I mean, just to watch that and not shocking at all because for those of us that scouted him, I mean, he is as genuine and as good of a person. And one of the reasons that we drafted him was for a lot of the stuff you guys got to see today.
The job is about winning games, I get that, but for you to be part of something like that and to see a kid, I know Jason showed you guys the video of him talking to us, like, what is that like for you to be part of that equation and guys having their dreams come true like that?
I mean, it's a really cool moment for them and their families. I think, we bring a lot of guys through here. When we're at the combine, we talk to a lot of guys, and sometimes, we ask them, you got any questions for us? And one of the things I try to tell all the guys is that, this draft thing is a one-time thing. You're going to play a lot of games, hopefully in the National Football League, and you're going to have good ones and bad ones, but the draft is unique. You're never going to go through it again, and they should really try to enjoy it because they put so much anxiety and stress on themselves, where they're going to go, how high they're going to go. So when you see that kind of pure emotion, joy, all that kind of stuff, it's really cool. You don't have a lot of time to enjoy it because you're in the middle of what you're doing. But at the same time, we've scouted these guys, so some of those things, I don't want to say it verifies because it's a moment, but it's not shocking because you kind of know who the person is and how hard they've worked to get there. And when you put the time in, like he has, particularly, and overcome some of the things he's overcome, you understand why that emotion's coming out, which was cool to see.
What did you like about the skill sets that made you have him higher on your board?
Well, first of all, he's exceptionally durable. We'll knock on wood of that, but he's exceptionally durable. He's been productive, for multiple years at Texas. He's strong. He's wired exactly the way we're very, very smart, very, very technique sound. He's got really strong hands to knock blockers off balance, and then his ability, I thought, to finish really this year. I mean, he improved every year, but this year I thought he really showed an ability to finish he took his game to a different level, but he's been improving the entire time. And when you talk to the people at Texas who do such a good job down there developing players, he was first class. I mean, they couldn't say enough good things about him. So we were pretty excited to turn that one in.
Brian, back in the day when you would draft left tackles and move them to guard, the T.J. Lanes, Josh Sittons, those guys, they weren't behemoths like the guys you've drafted here, like Melton, like Williams. What tells you that those guys could play guard, and are you counting on at least one of them to give you something at guard?
Yeah, I think for me, as an area scout, I would get teased. I would that if you had size like that, I was gonna probably overgrade you. No, I think for me, there's a skill set that they have to be able to play both tackle and guard, and that's been a big emphasis for us. That we'd like to have guys that can play both. You're either going to be kind of a tackle guard swing guy, a guard center swing guy, or a tackle center swing guy. You got to be able to play multiple spots, And we've had a ton of luck, throughout my years here of taking guys who played left tackle and moving them inside. I remember when we took Josh Sitton had played mostly tackle until the last couple of games of his final year in school and stuff. So, and he was a behemoth, whether you like him. He was a pretty big guy too. So, we've had a lot of luck doing that. It's certainly something when you can only going to carry 8 on game day, maybe 9 on your active roster, and 10, 11 with the practice squad. Like those guys with injuries are going to have to play multiple spots. So, the big thing for me with the big guys, with what Matt likes to do on offense, is whether they're inside or they're out, do they have enough quickness to get their head across the shade? And all these guys that we've taken, we feel pretty good about that.
Was there something that happened last season that made you start to think, we may have to move Elton to center, we have to do more coming up in this offensive line?
Yeah.
I mean, you've done that with the free agency, with the second-round pick.
Yeah, good question. I think certainly in the middle of last year, Josh was going to be an unrestricted free agent. We didn't know how that was going to go, so certainly we had thought about how are we going to do that. We had a number of options. Obviously, Elton was a center in college, and he was a pretty elite center in college. And every time we've had to play him there, he's played at a very, very high level. We also really like Jacob Monk, what he could do. So we wanted to make sure we were going to be covered there. The opportunity to get Aaron Banks, obviously you never know how that's going to go. When that thing came across, that's when all that stuff started to make sense a little bit. So One of the things you always got to be prepared for is having enough centers, not only to play games, but to practice and get through a practice. And I feel really good about that right now.
You talked about the experience of having the draft here. You've had a pretty big job to do this week, too. Has there been any moments when you have been able to kind of get a glimpse of what's going on outside the room you're in?
Yeah, it's really up from the TV. When they pan and they're showing everything, as we're sitting in there going through it. Every once in a while, earlier in the day, before things would get started, I'd peek outside the window and see. I know a lot of our guys, maybe before the gates open, kind of took a tour around the stadium, looking at a bunch of stuff. I never got the opportunity to do that, but everybody's been really, really impressed. And I think you guys might have a better sense of it than me, but it certainly seems like, this whole thing with Green, with our town and the Packers really, it couldn't have gone any better, even with some of the rain this morning, or yesterday. It exceeded all my expectations. Again, I was sitting in a room watching it on TV, but it looked really cool.
You've done a lot of drafts. Was there anything about having it here that made this week different in terms of just the process, or once the draft starts, is it like every other one?
Yeah, for us it was pretty the same. I think the one thing was that, with Matthew Golden being here, and being able to, see him right away like that was pretty cool. And then certainly Barron today was very, very, very unique. I didn't get to see him. A lot of our guys did. I didn't. But that was really, really unique. And I just think I did make it home at decent times. Like the traffic wasn't quite as bad as I expected it to be. But yeah, it was different. But I will say this: there was no distractions or interruptions or things that I might have been concerned with. Yeah, it went really, really smooth.
But you and Jen and the kids are going to the concert or not?
Volleyball tournaments take up her time right now, so there's like that. I think my son, if he's not already out there, he's probably out there somewhere. But no, this is we're still working through some UDFA stuff. But once we get done with this, we'll, as a staff, coaching staff and scouts, we'll all get together, and that's always with the amount of work we put into this, it's always a really good time to kind of sit around and talk about the draft, and a few weeks from now they'll start working on next year. Yeah, so.
What do you like about the corner that you took, Robinson?
Yeah. He's got great feet. He can play off man coverage, which is one of the harder things to do. He took up a step from Furman to Tulane and really played really, really well in his first season there. So I think as he gets more reps against really better competition, I think he's going to continue to improve. He doesn't have elite size, but I thought his speed and his ability as an athlete to stay with guys, particularly from playing off coverage, which is so hard, and he's got great ball skills. So we brought him in here, got to know him a little bit more, and really liked him, and so we're excited for him.
Two more, please.
Any qualms there? 183 holding up, run tackling, and then ended up getting hurt.
Yeah, again, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but I think the foot quickness, the hips, and the speed kind of, overrode that some a little bit. Made us want to take a shot on him.
Brian, you mentioned culture a bunch this weekend, so has Matt. Matt had a line earlier talking about how finding guys who not only love ball, but they need it, and there's a difference between those two things. Is that something you guys feel like you found this week with the guys you were able to bring in?
Yeah, I do. I think with a lot of our guys, pretty much all these guys love football. And I think one of the things Matt's talking about when we talk about need football, because we do talk a lot about it, in this day and age of NIL and the transfer portal and everything that's going on, there's just a lot of options, a lot of guys that are looking at the game differently, and the guys that just purely need football because it's part of who they are, I think is very important to us, And as we've gone through the last few drafts, that's something that we've talked a lot about, and I think that gives those guys that are that way a leg up when it comes to battling for spots and sticking around.
Really along those lines, I'd asked you about the love of the game thing on Monday. I've heard you a couple different guys that you drafted. You said they've been through adversity and come out the other side. That's another non-measurable quantity. But is that another thing that you've really started to look more and more at, and if so, why?
I wouldn't say more. I would say we've always have. I think there's times where you run into some guys that maybe haven't, and when you don't know how they're going to react to adversity, that can be tough, especially in the National Football League. The first time they're facing adversity is here. That can be difficult. So knowing that they've already been through something and learned how to get to the other side of it and persevere, because they're going to go through adversity. There's no doubt about it, and it's going to be hard, and they're going to question themselves, and their confidence is going to get shaken at times, and they need to be able to get through that and to perform at this level, and so it is important to us. It always has been.
What traits did you like about Williams?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What traits did you like about Williams?
You're talking about Savion?
No, your tackle.
Oh, John, the last one, yeah. So John got great length, exceptionally bright, right? Really, really, really smart. He's got the versatility to play left tackle and guard. He probably could play center because he's smart enough to. He's one of the few guys that can really play with full extension with his hands and is moving his feet at the same time. And again, we were down there in the 7th round, and it was like we were just really, really. It's unusual for a guy that can play tackle and guard, play 4 spots for you, to be down there at that spot. So that's kind of what we liked into him. Yeah.
Was this draft had fewer trades? Just after some of the big moves on Thursday night, did you feel that? Or was there fewer calls?
I haven't looked at the numbers to see comparative to the other drafts. I haven't looked at that yet. I did feel that way. I know in the first couple of days, just that, nobody wanted, everybody wanted a deal. And and then we just had good players to pick when it was time for us to pick. I thought today there felt like a lot less opportunities. One of the things we were kind of, I think, focused on was if we possibly could pick up some picks for next year. We were certainly open to that. And then nobody that we talked to really seemed all interested in doing that. So at the same time, all through today, we had multiple options with players that we liked. So I think if the right option would have been there, we would have certainly done it. But it never materialized.